I didn't plan to start a war over a parking spot, but when the CEO's golden boy nephew decided my reserved space was his birthright, he didn't just steal asphalt, he triggered a chain of events that would cost the company $40 million. And the best part? He never saw it coming. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but sometimes it's served with a resignation letter and a competitor's contract, signed in the exact shade of red that matches the taillights of his Porsche as it left my spot for the last time. My name is Harper Lane, and I've been the Director of Strategy at Meridian Corp for 12 years. 12 years of climbing through glass ceilings, navigating office politics like a surgeon with a scalpel, and earning every square inch of respect, including that coveted executive parking spot with my name stenciled in corporate gold. That Tuesday morning started like any other, except for the Porsche 911 Turbo gleaming in my space like a middle finger wrapped in German engineering. Fresh out of the dealership, still wearing temporary plates, the kind of car that screams, "I've never earned anything myself." I circled the garage twice, thinking maybe I'd misremembered my spot number, but no, there it was. H. Lane, Director of Strategy, being straddled by $200,000 worth of compensation for inadequacy. I found him in the break room 40 minutes later, after I'd parked in visitor parking like some summer intern. Tyler Brooks, the name tasted like artificial sweetener. Too fake to swallow, but impossible to spit out. 28 years old. Wharton MBA still warm from the printer, and a jawline that belonged on a yacht club brochure. He was holding court with a cluster of junior analysts, all of them laughing at something that probably wasn't funny. Harper. He called out my name like we were old friends, like he hadn't just colonized my territory. "Hope you don't mind the musical chairs in the garage. Uncle Richard said the executive spots were flexible." Uncle Richard, our CEO, of course. The junior analysts scattered like startled birds, suddenly remembering urgent emails. Tyler's smile didn't waver, the kind of smile that had never met a consequence it couldn't charm away. "Flexible," I repeated, letting the words sit in the air between us like a loaded gun. Interesting interpretation of a named assignment. He laughed, actually laughed, and poured himself coffee from the pot I'd made 20 minutes ago. "Come on, it's just asphalt and white paint." Besides, he leaned against the counter with practiced casualness. "I'm heading up business development now. Technically, that makes us equals. Maybe even—" He paused for effect, stirring his stolen coffee with my personal spoon. "Makes me a little more essential to revenue. You know how it is." I did know how it was. I knew he'd been hired 2 weeks ago into a position that materialized out of thin air, a title inflated like a balloon at a child's party. I knew his LinkedIn profile listed entrepreneurial ventures that were actually 3 failed startups funded by Daddy's money. I knew he spelled strategy wrong in his introduction email to the department. "Business development," I said, tasting each syllable. "That's what we're calling it." His smile flickered, just for a microsecond. "Big things coming. Harper, Uncle Richard wants fresh perspectives on the Morrison Industries deal." The Morrison Industries deal. My deal. 18 months of relationship building, data analysis, and strategic positioning. The crown jewel that would expand our market share by 30%. I felt something cold and familiar settling in my chest, not anger, but something more useful. Calculation. "Fresh perspectives," I echoed, returning his smile with interest. "How refreshing." Sarah Chen from accounting chose that moment to walk in, took one look at us, and immediately reversed course. Smart woman. The air between Tyler and me had turned into something you could cut with a spreadsheet. "Anyway," Tyler said, pushing off from the counter, "I'm sure we'll work great together. Oh, and Harper." He paused at the doorway, cologne trailing behind him like a threat. "I hope you understand about the parking thing. It's closer to the elevator, and I've got a bad knee from lacrosse." Lacrosse, of course. After he left, I stood in the break room for a full minute, staring at the ring his coffee cup had left on the counter. A perfect circle of carelessness. Some people might have seen a petty tyrant marking his territory, but I saw something else, an opportunity dressed in overconfidence and nepotism. Tyler Brooks thought he was playing checkers, moving pieces around a board he'd inherited, He didn't realize I'd been playing chess for over a decade, sacrificing pawns and positioning queens while people like him were still learning which way the horses moved. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found her name, Evelyn Hart, CEO of Morrison Industries, my mentor, my friend, and most importantly, someone who despised bullshit even more than I did. The parking spot wasn't just asphalt and white paint, it was a declaration of war, and Tyler Brooks, with his Porsche and his uncle and his manufactured title, had just fired the first shot at someone who'd been stockpiling ammunition since before he'd graduated from his safety school. He wanted my space, fine, but he'd just made the kind of enemy who smiled while she documented everything, who built cases like architects built skyscrapers, and who knew that the best revenge wasn't served cold, it was served with a paper trail and witnesses. The Morrison Industries presentation was scheduled for 3 weeks out, 3 weeks that Tyler turned into his personal masterclass in corporate vandalism. He didn't just insert himself into my project, he performed a hostile takeover with the subtlety of a freight train. It started with the Monday morning strategy meeting. I'd prepared a comprehensive deck, 40 slides of market analysis, competitive positioning, and ROI projections that could make a CFO weep with joy. Tyler showed up 15 minutes late with a cappuccino and a PowerPoint that looked like a unicorn had vomited rainbows across every slide. "I've been thinking," he announced, commandeering the laser pointer like he'd conquered France. "We need to pivot the whole approach. Less numbers, more vision. Morrison doesn't want to see spreadsheets, they want to see the future." The future, apparently, looked like animated transitions, gradient backgrounds, and buzzwords that had been focus grouped to death. Synergy appeared 17 times. Disruptive innovation made 12 appearances. He actually used the phrase paradigm shift without irony. "Tyler," I kept my voice level, professional, while mentally calculating wind speed and trajectory for throwing him out the 20th floor window. Morrison Industries specifically requested detailed financial projections. Evelyn Hart doesn't make $40 million decisions based on pretty graphics. "That's old school thinking. Harper?" He clicked through his slides with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. "Trust me, I've been studying their social media. They're all about transformation now. Digital transformation, cultural transformation, buzzword transformation." The words escaped before I could stop them. The room went silent. 8 department heads suddenly found their phones fascinating. Tyler's jaw tightened, but his smile remained plastered on like bad wallpaper. "I think what Harper means," he said, addressing the room while looking through me, "is that we should blend approaches, but as business development lead on this project, I'll be driving the narrative." Business development lead. On my project, the project I'd nurtured from cold call to contract negotiation. "Of course," I said, smooth as poison. "Drive away." For the next 2 weeks, I watched him systematically dismantle everything I'd built. He reassigned my team members to support roles, which meant they were glorified slide formatters. He scheduled ideation sessions that were just him talking at a whiteboard while everyone else checked their email. He actually suggested we hire a DJ for the presentation, a DJ, for a boardroom meeting with executives who considered background music an act of aggression. But the masterpiece of his incompetence came during the prep session. He stood at the front of our conference room, practicing his opening. Imagine. He spread his arms wide like a discount Tony Robbins. A world where business doesn't just meet expectations, it exceeds them. Where innovation isn't just a word, it's a way of life. Margaret from finance actually laughed. She tried to turn it into a cough, but we all heard it. "Something funny. Margaret..." Tyler's voice had an edge now. The kind that reminded everyone whose uncle signed their paychecks. "No, just..." Margaret glanced at me, then back at him. "The Morrison team. They're very data-driven. Maybe we could include some of Harper's analytics." "Harper's analytics are in the appendix," he said, dismissing 18 months of work to the PowerPoint equivalent of Siberia. "This is about painting a vision. Harper, you'll handle the slide transitions while I present. Make sure there's smooth timing is everything." Slide transitions. He'd reduced me to a remote control operator. That night, I stayed late, officially to perfect the transitions, but really to document everything. Every email where he'd overridden data with decorative nonsense. Every meeting note where he'd dismissed critical market insights for vibes. Every spreadsheet he'd ignored because the numbers didn't support his narrative of revolutionary disruption. I compiled it all into a folder labeled Morrison Original Strategy and uploaded it to my personal cloud. Then I opened my phone and typed a message to Evelyn Hart. Hi, Evelyn. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Quick heads up, the presentation has been significantly revised since our last discussion. I wasn't allowed to review the final deck, but I wanted you to know the approach has shifted from our original data-driven strategy. See you Thursday. Harper. Her response came within minutes. Interesting. I specifically requested your analysis. We'll see what your team presents. Not his team, not the team, your team. I looked out at the city lights from my office window, watching the traffic crawl below like blood through tired veins. Tyler thought he was ascending, climbing towards some nepotistic nirvana where MBAs and last names meant more than merit. He didn't realize he was actually climbing a gallows of his own construction. Every dismissive email, every ignored data set, every stupid, arrogant decision, they were all just more rope. And I was perfectly happy to let him tie his own noose. After all, the best executioners never have to pull the lever themselves. They just build the platform and let gravity do the rest. Evelyn Hart and I had history. The kind forged in conference room trenches and quarterly report foxholes. 15 years ago, when I was a junior analyst drowning in Excel sheets at my first job, she was the client who noticed I'd caught a $7 million error everyone else had missed. She hired me on the spot, became my mentor, and taught me that in corporate America, relationships were currency and information was power. When she left to become COO at Morrison Industries 5 years later, she made me promise 2 things: never apologize for being the smartest person in the room, and always give her a heads up when someone was about to waste her time. That Tuesday, 2 days before the presentation, I was keeping both promises. We met at Ristorante Lucia, the kind of place where deals got made over $100 steaks and handshake agreements worth millions. Evelyn looked exactly the same, silver hair worn like armor, a suit that cost more than Tyler's monthly car payment, and eyes that could audit your soul. "Harper Lane," she said, standing to embrace me. "You look like someone planning a murder." "Only a professional one," I replied, settling into the leather chair across from her. She laughed, a short, sharp sound like breaking glass. "So, this new business development wonder boy, Tyler Brooks, Richard's nephew, you've done your homework. I do background checks on everyone who touches my deals. Harper, his LinkedIn reads like a creative writing exercise. 3 failed startups, including..." She pulled out her phone. An app for rating other people's outfits in real time. It was called Fit Check, with a PH. He spelled it with a PH. "Revolutionary disruption," I said dryly. "Is that what we're calling nepotism now?" She signaled the waiter for wine. "Your message was interesting. Not allowed to review the final deck. That's not like you, Harper. You don't usually let people bulldoze your work. Sometimes the best strategy is letting someone else dig their own grave. I just make sure they have a quality shovel." Evelyn studied me over her wine glass, a small smile playing at her lips. "And this grave he's digging, how deep are we talking?" "Mariana Trench. He's replaced every piece of substantive analysis with what I can only describe as a TED Talk fever dream. Lots of movement, no substance. He actually used the phrase, leverage our synergies to actualize potential." Christ. She took a long sip of wine. "And Richard's signing off on this." "Richard hasn't seen it. Tyler's been name-dropping his uncle but avoiding actual oversight. He's counting on the family connection to smooth over any rough edges after the fact." "Rough edges?" Evelyn laughed again. "Harper, I don't do rough edges. I do precision. You know what I hate more than bad data? People who waste your time with pretty pictures." "Exactly." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to let him present. I'm going to ask very specific questions about market penetration rates, customer acquisition costs, and 5-year ROI projections. Questions I know you have answers to, but he doesn't. The answers are in the appendix, I said. Slides 47 through 85. He relegated them there because they're not vision forward. Vision forward, she shook her head. You know what I find visionary numbers that actually add up. Strategies based on market reality instead of MBA fever dreams. She paused, studying me with those calculating eyes. You've been very patient. Harper, very professional. How long has he been in your space? 3 weeks? The parking spot, too. I smiled. You really do your homework. Security footage is a wonderful thing. That Porsche in your spot every morning like a neon sign saying, I'm an entitled ass. She pulled out her tablet, scrolling through something. Tell me, Harper, hypothetically speaking, if someone were to make you an offer right now, triple your current salary, full autonomy on the Morrison project, and a team of your choosing, what would you say? Hypothetically, purely hypothetical, of course. I'd say that someone better be prepared for me to bring my best people with me, the ones who actually know how to execute a $40 million implementation without turning it into a slideshow circus. Names: Margaret from Finance, David and Keiko from Data Analytics, Sarah from Operations, the people Tyler relegated to support roles. Evelyn typed something into her tablet. Hypothetically noted. Now, about Thursday's presentation, I assume Tyler will be leading. He's planning a 20-minute opening about transformation and disruption. I'll be operating the slide clicker. The director of strategy reduced to a remote control operator. Her eyes hardened. Richard should be ashamed. His brother would be rolling in his grave. He built that company on talent, not last names. She was right. Richard's brother, the founder, had hired me personally. He would have thrown Tyler out the window himself for this kind of behavior. Harper, Evelyn said, her voice serious now. I want you to know something. Whatever happens Thursday, you have options. Morrison Industries values competence over connections. We pay for performance, not pedigree, and we never, ever, make our directors of strategy operate the clicker. Even hypothetically. Especially hypothetically. She raised her glass. To gravity. I raised mine. And to those who insist on jumping off cliffs. We clinked glasses, the sound ringing like a bell or maybe a death knell. Tyler Brooks had no idea what was waiting for him Thursday. He thought he was walking into a sales pitch. He was actually walking into an interview one he'd already failed before he opened his mouth. Evelyn Hart didn't suffer fools. She eviscerated them, professionally and permanently, and I just handed her the knife. Thursday arrived wrapped in rain and executive expectations. The Morrison Industries team entered our boardroom like a SWAT team in Armani, 5 executives led by Evelyn, who wore a black suit that made her look like corporate death incarnate. Tyler was already there, fiddling with his laser pointer like a nervous gunslinger. He'd worn his best suit, the one that screamed, "I'm trying too hard," in 3 different languages. The Porsche keys sat conspicuously on the table beside his leather portfolio, because of course they did. Ms. Hart, he bounded forward with his hand extended, all gleaming teeth and misplaced confidence. Tyler Brooks, Business Development, I'll be leading today's presentation. Evelyn shook his hand with the enthusiasm of someone handling toxic waste. Mr. Brooks, I was expecting Ms. Lane to present. This is her project, isn't it? Harper's been instrumental in the support work, Tyler said, and I felt my jaw clench at support work. But I've revolutionized the approach. Wait until you see what we've prepared. Revolutionized. Evelyn's voice was flat as roadkill. How exciting. The lights dimmed, and Tyler launched into his performance. The first slide exploded onto the screen in a cascade of animated stars. Transformation through innovation floated across a background of swirling clouds. Imagine, Tyler began, spreading his arms wide, a partnership that doesn't just meet expectations, it shatters them. Behind him, I clicked to the next slide. More animations. A rocket ship soaring past a bar graph. The metaphor was as subtle as a brick through a window. Evelyn's team sat motionless, faces carved from marble. Her CFO, James Chen, was taking notes that looked suspiciously like doodles of hanging stick figures. Tyler continued his descent into corporate poetry. We don't just see Morrison Industries as a client. We see you as co-pilots on a journey to revolutionize the very fabric of business reality. The fabric of business reality, Evelyn repeated slowly, like she was tasting something rotten. Tell me, Mr. Brooks, what's our current market share in the Eastern region? Tyler's smile flickered. Well, that's really more of a granular detail. Granular. She wrote something down. I see. And our customer acquisition cost for Q3. The specific numbers aren't as important as the trend. The trend. More writing. Mr. Brooks, what exactly do you think we're here to discuss? The future, Tyler declared, clicking his pointer with renewed vigor. The next slide shows our synergy framework. Stop! Evelyn's voice cut through the room like a scalpel. Just stop! The silence that followed was beautiful. It was the kind of silence that had texture, weight, presence. It was the silence of a career detonating in real time. Ms. Lane, Evelyn turned to me. I believe you prepared the original analysis for this project. Yes, I said simply. The one relegated to the appendix. Slides 47 through 85. Would you mind sharing those with us? The actual data. Tyler's face went through several colors, like a confused traffic light. That's not the presentation we prepared. Mr. Brooks? Evelyn's tone could have frozen hell. When I invest $40 million, I don't do it based on rocket ship animations. Ms. Lane, the real presentation, please. I stood, smoothly taking control of the laptop. Of course, my fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up my original deck. If you'll direct your attention to the screen, you'll see our actual market analysis. For the next 30 minutes, I presented the real strategy. Customer acquisition costs broken down by channel, ROI projections based on historical data, competitive analysis that actually analyzed competition instead of dismissing it with the word disruption. Every slide was clean, professional, and backed by numbers that had been verified 3 times. Tyler sat there like a deflating balloon, occasionally attempting to interject with comments about missing the bigger picture that everyone ignored. When I finished, Evelyn's team was leaning forward, engaged, asking real questions that I had real answers for. James Chen had stopped drawing hanged stick figures and was actually calculating something. This, Evelyn said finally, is what I expected. This is what we came for. She turned to Tyler with a smile that could have curdled milk. Mr. Brooks, can you explain why this analysis was hidden in an appendix? I felt we needed more vision. Vision without data is hallucination, Mr. Brooks, and I don't make $40 million investments based on hallucinations. She stood, her team following suit. Ms. Excellent work as always. We'll be in touch. She paused at the door, turning back to Tyler. Oh, and Mr. Brooks, that app you created, FitCheck with a PH. My teenage daughter used it. She said it was, and I quote, like Instagram had a baby with a dumpster fire. Just thought you should know. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like a coffin lid. Tyler stood there, laser pointer still in hand, pointing at nothing. His revolution had been televised, and everyone had changed the channel. My phone buzzed, a message from Evelyn. Lunch tomorrow. Same place. Bring your contract expectations. And Harper. That was even better than I expected. I looked at Tyler, still frozen by the projection screen. His transformational journey transformed into a career obituary. He'd wanted to revolutionize. He'd wanted to disrupt. Congratulations. Tyler, mission accomplished. Friday's lunch at Ristorante Lucia felt like a war council disguised as a social call. Evelyn had commandeered a private dining room. The kind where 8-figure deals got signed between the appetizer and entree. She wasn't alone. Morrison's chief legal officer sat beside her with a folder thick enough to kill someone. "Harper," Evelyn said, sliding a document across the table before I'd even sat down. "Let's skip the foreplay. Senior Vice President of Strategic Partnerships, 300,000 base, performance bonuses up to 50%, full benefits, and a signing bonus that should cover any inconvenience of changing jobs." I picked up the contract, feeling its weight literally and figuratively. "That's triple my current salary. It's what you're worth, what you've always been worth." She poured wine like she was loading ammunition. "But here's the real offer. I want you to build your own division, handpick your team, full autonomy on the Morrison implementation, and 3 other major accounts we're bringing online." "My own division." I let the words settle in my mouth like expensive chocolate. "And my team. That list you mentioned Wednesday, Margaret, David, Keiko, Sarah. I've already had HR run preliminary packages for them, 30% raises across the board. Minimum. 40 for Margaret. Anyone who laughs at bad presentations deserves hazard pay." The chief legal officer spoke up. "There's also a non-compete clause, standard 18 months, but given the circumstances..." He smiled like a shark who'd just spotted a swimming executive. "We'd be willing to waive it for any personnel you bring with you from Meridian." "You're trying to gut them," I said, not accusingly, just observing. "I'm trying to acquire talent that's been criminally underutilized," Evelyn corrected. "Tyler Brooks spent 3 weeks destroying what you spent 18 months building. Richard let nepotism override sense. They don't deserve you. Harper, any of you." She was right. God, she was right. But leaving wasn't just about walking away, it was about timing. Maximum impact. When I asked, 2 weeks would be professional, but honestly, Evelyn leaned back. Monday would send a stronger message, especially if your key team members happen to resign simultaneously. That's corporate murder. That's corporate justice. They can't execute the Morrison deal without you. Tyler certainly can't. He doesn't even know what our profit margins are. She pulled out her tablet, showing me an email chain. "I've already notified Richard that we have concerns about the project leadership. He's scrambling, promising me Tyler's just learning the ropes." "Learning the ropes," I repeated, while standing on my shoulders. "Not anymore." She signaled the waiter for another bottle. "Harper, I'm going to tell you something in confidence. Morrison's board is planning a major acquisition. Whoever leads our strategic partnerships will be instrumental in a deal worth approximately $200 million. That could be you, or I could let Tyler and his uncle figure it out with their synergy frameworks and rocket ship graphics." The waiter arrived with the wine and our lunch. Evelyn had ordered for us Power Move, but I didn't mind. She knew what I liked. "There's something else," she said after the waiter left. "I had lunch with Richard yesterday. Different restaurant, obviously. He spent 20 minutes apologizing for Tyler's presentation, promising me you were still involved, that Tyler was just the face while you did the real work." "The face," I said, cutting into my salmon with perhaps more force than necessary. I told him that was the problem, that reducing you to back-end support while his nephew played executive was exactly why Morrison was reconsidering the partnership. She smiled, the kind of smile that preceded corporate executions. "He actually asked if I could speak to you, smooth things over, make sure you understood Tyler needed this for his development." His development? That's when I told him we'd be happy to contribute to Tyler's development. We'd teach him all about losing $40 million contracts. Very educational. My phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. "Emergency meeting called for Monday morning. Tyler's presenting a recovery strategy for Morrison. He's asking for all original files." I showed Evelyn the message. She laughed, actually laughed. "A recovery strategy for a patient he killed." She raised her glass. "Well, that settles it. Monday morning. You'll be starting at Morrison. Your team too. If they're smart, let Tyler present his recovery strategy to empty chairs." "That's cruel," I said. "No. Cruel is taking credit for someone else's work. Cruel is parking in someone's spot as a power play. Cruel is reducing a director of strategy to a slide clicker." Her eyes hardened. This is consequences. She was right. Tyler had drawn first blood over a parking spot. But wars weren't won with first blood, they were won with last. I picked up the contract, feeling the weight of everything it represented. Not just money or position, but vindication. Proof that competence mattered more than connections, that work mattered more than wealth. I'll need the weekend to talk to my team, I said. They're expecting your calls. I may have had my people reach out with hypothetical opportunities. She smiled innocently. Purely hypothetical, of course. Of course, I signed my name with a flourish that felt like drawing a sword. Evelyn, what about the non-disclosure agreements? Meridian will try to enforce them. The chief legal officer smiled wider. Ms. Lane, we've reviewed your NDAs.